Welcome to We the World and our 2025 Manifesting the Dream event. Each year, we take time to remember Martin Luther King Jr. and his beloved community. And each year, we are thrilled to feature the many people and organizations who have taken action to be of service, not only in January and February, but all year round. We at We the World welcome you to take action and be of service at we.net/MLK from January 15th to February 28th. Please join us in being a part of this annual celebration and consider being of service in your communities and with us. Of course, donations are very appreciated at we.net/donate. My name is Jana Larsen, and I am the HR Deputy Director of We the World. Today, we welcome Jack Strassburg and David Cobb. Jack Strassburg is a passionate peace, justice, and environmental activist who has been envisioning a new world paradigm since 1974. With a bachelor's degree in economics and psychology and an associate's degree in data processing, he brings a diverse skill set to his work. His professional background includes roles as computer instructor, director, analyst, programmer, and counselor for emotionally disturbed adolescents. A dedicated community leader, Jack served on the board of the Tucson Peace Center and was a founding member of the local, state, and national Green Parties, also serving on their national board of directors for 5 years. He has run for public office twice and played a pivotal role in supporting the Navajo, or Diné, resistance against the U.S. government and Peabody Coal Company as part of the Big Mountain Legal Defense Offense Committee. Jack was instrumental in organizing the first Indigenous-run certified permaculture teaching team in the Western Hemisphere and co-created a community radio show focused on activism, which aired for 30 years. He has also raised funds for several Dene and Hopi elder delegations to the UN Human Rights Commission to oppose forced relocation. Holding a permaculture design certificate, Jack's environmental efforts extend to creating sustainable business models, such as a coffee and crafted fruit venture in southern Mexico aimed at protecting the jungle from deforestation. And he is also a member of We the World. David Cobb is a people's lawyer who has sued corporate polluters, lobbied elected officials, run for political office himself, and has been arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience. Good trouble. He serves as coordinator of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and is a co founder of the People's Network for Land and Liberation. David was raised in the rural South and grew up in poverty and has worked as a deckhand and in construction before starting college. He got his start in organizing in the 80s as part of the student anti apartheid movement and has the arrest record to prove it. He has appeared on CNN, PBS NewsHour, MSNBC, ABC News, National Public Radio, and is frequently quoted in mainstream media. In short, David is a visionary strategist who puts theory into practice and strives to acknowledge mistakes and errors in order to learn from them. And now, Jack, I'm ready to turn the talking feather to you to talk with our guest. Take it away.
All right. Well, happy to do so. Well, I'm going to say a few things here before I get to David. But basically, what this is about to me is that I've been working, God, for 50 years trying to put together a new paradigm, a paradigm that works for everybody. And it's just been so difficult for so long because there are obviously people out there who aren't particularly into all of us having a world that suits us. So what I have found is that to do this, if we do want to put together a world that works for all, I think we have to realize that we are not going to be able to be very effective at doing that when we are relying on the powers that be for our daily bread, not to mention our housing, our healthcare, our transportation, and whatever. And so the idea is we need an economy that works for all if we want a world that works for all. And if we don't, I mean, well, basically, if we need an economy that works for all, if we want a world that works for all, and in order to have an economy that works for all, we need to create it ourselves because the people who are in charge of the current one really don't want that. And so what I have found surprising to some extent is that here's this worldwide network of networks of people who are, well, what some call these solidarity or social solidarity network. They have networks in six continents plus Oceania, and yet when I do my research, very few people seem to know that it exists, even not much less much about it. So anyway, what I'm trying to do is trying to help the solidarity economy folks get, another little level out there in the public eye. And so that's why I brought David, because I think he's about as good as anybody to tell us and explain to us what the solidarity economy is and what we need to do to support that. So I guess I can pass the feather on to you, David, since we're doing all these Native American things here. The feathers are there, and really happy that you could be here today.
Well, thank you so much, Jack, and thank you, Jana, for just a brilliant and beautiful introduction and framing. I am very honored to be here with We the World and really appreciate the reminder that Martin Luther King Jr. said, politics done correctly is about creating a beloved community. And for me, that is a reminder as well that we should ask ourselves, well, what community? And at We the World, y'all have taken it and literally integrated it into your name, a global community. And it is also worth pointing out, Jack, my agreement with you about we cannot have a beloved community globally, nationally, state, local. We cannot have one in an economy that is based on extraction, oppression, commodification. We need a new economy. And I want to remind all of us, and maybe you didn't know this, but I still remember the first time that I learned that the base root of the word economy is actually from the Greek. And it means ecos or ecology or the home, and then the study of the home. So really, this idea of what an economy is just about how do you view home. And I think that the We the World framing is brilliant because it is a reminder that actually this pale blue dot is our home, and that there are different expressions culturally, ethnically. There are all sorts of different ways that humans express themselves, but we exist on planet Earth, Mother Earth, in an interconnected web of life. Whatever we do to that web, we're ultimately doing to ourselves. But the problem with the way that the capitalist economy works, it makes it an abstraction. It has divorced us from our connection with each other, from our connection to Mother Earth, from our connection to life itself. So the very first thing to remember is that the word economy really just means how are we managing our home? And I would say under a capitalist framework, we are literally extracting and destroying it. And if you take a look at it from an eco-spiritual or feminist or indigenous point of view, one would see oh my gosh, we're literally commodifying and consuming Mother Earth faster than she can reproduce herself. We are literally destroying the life support system that we all need in order for, frankly, a few billionaires to just get more money. This is really a problem. And so that's the problem. And I think many of us have gotten very good at describing the problem. What I'm so excited about for the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, and I'll take a moment to plug U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, ussen.org. Very simple. The U.S. Solidarity Economy Network says we need a new paradigm. And it can, just as capitalism has a system of rules and logic and ways to organize itself, the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and the entire solidarity economy itself is a system that starts from the premise that everyone and all of life, not just individual humans, but everyone has their needs met in a way that doesn't exploit anybody else and doesn't destroy the environment. It's an economy or a way of managing home in a way to embody the values of economic and social justice, diversity, cooperation, self-management, and ecologically sustainability. It highlights various alternatives to capitalism. It articulates approaches to how our economy can serve people and planet rather than profits and blind growth. So again, the solidarity economy, I'll go into the principles if you want, Jack, but at its core, remember this. The solidarity economy is about creating a new system that puts people and planet above profit. It's a post-capitalist framework.
All right. Well, actually, I mean, since this is the idea here is to let people get a better idea of just what it is, so maybe they could be more willing to participate. So yeah, I would like you to get into the details, and I like the fact that you put out the larger picture of it as well.
Okay, so that's the basic vision of what is a solidarity economy. Now I'll get into some of the principles and then I'll get into some of the practices. So there are 5 principles of a solidarity economy. And the first one, and I would argue perhaps the most important one, is a commitment to pluralism. And that is the solidarity economy is not dogmatic. It's not a fixed blueprint. It acknowledges that there are multiple paths to the same goal of an ecologically sustainable, socially just world, right? And I think that the concept of pluralism, we should anchor that. The second concept is solidarity itself, which is basically collective practices around cooperation, mutualism, gifting, sharing, reciprocity, love, caring. And I think it's worth pointing out that in a solidarity economy context, we frequently talk about love and care as an economic practice. And the fact that the capitalist model rejects it or doesn't talk about it at all is a telling point. The third concept that I want to underscore is equity. Solidarity economy opposes any form of oppression or power over dominance. It includes global imperialism and colonization, and it includes discrimination based on race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, cultural discrimination. So an equity lens permeates the solidarity economy framework. The fourth core concept, and I've mentioned it several times already, is sustainability and ecological connectedness. That obviously draws heavily upon indigenous perspectives of living in harmony with nature and each other. Solidarity economy upholds the principles of regeneration, not extraction. And then the fifth principle is a participatory process. Solidarity economy understands that if a decision affects your life, then you should have the ability to influence that decision. Doesn't mean you get a blocking power, doesn't mean that you get to say exactly what happens, but it is a recognition that we need to move back to collective decision-making at the local level wherever possible to allow and provide ways for people to participate directly in decisions about their communities and their own lives. So again, these 5 principles: pluralism. There's no one right way to get to ecological sustainability. But 2, solidarity, cooperation, mutual respect. 3, equity. All oppression, power over dominator practices, we should find ways to work around and uproot. 4th, make a commitment to the idea of the 7th generation, to think about the impact of any of our decisions on the 7th generation to come. Lastly, a participatory process. We're collectively making decisions about how we're managing our home. And so, Jack, I'll end with this. Please remember the solidarity economy is a post-capitalist future. Again, we don't fight with people who want to defend capitalism. I say, okay, if you can, where can we find ways to work together? And I don't believe that capitalism can be reformed and have sustainability. I think we need a new complete system. So I'm a peaceful revolutionary. But if somebody, you don't have to agree with me about that for me to find ways to work with you on some of the practices of the solidarity economy. So remember, I've given you the big vision, then I've given you the principles of the solidarity economy, and now I'm going to get us into some very specific examples of what a democratic economy would look like at the policy level. Here's one: the encouragement and creation of more worker-owned cooperative businesses. Because remember, we're not saying that we are against commerce or business. Far from it. We do believe that we need to meet people's objective material needs. But as we do so, we believe that rather than having the private ownership of the means of production, we should actually collectively be able to empower our own labor, our own sweat, our own vision, our own entrepreneurial spirit. And we do that through worker-owned cooperatives. So that we have an entire section on our website, again, at the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. I'll sneak it in again, ussen.org, and you'll see a whole host of things on worker-owned cooperatives. But wait, there's more. How about public banks? Instead of having private banks that exist to finance and return profits to shareholders, what if we had public banks where instead of providing profits to private shareholders, you just said, we're going to democratize finance itself. And we're going to use a public bank for infrastructure projects like roads and hospitals and affordable housing. We could literally slash by about 30 to 40% the cost of every public project if it was financed by a public bank. I'm going to say that again because it's such a shocking statistic. 30 to 40% of every public project that uses public tax dollars to do public projects, 30 to 40% of the cost of that is merely the privilege to borrow money from private bankers. This is outrageous. If we had public banks, we would be able to eliminate 30 to 40% of the cost of each of the projects. So I just want to point out that's literally trillions of dollars that could be saved through the creation of a public bank. But wait, there's even more. How about a universal basic income where we say we're going to guarantee that every person has access to at least enough money to survive and thrive? That and that number, what's really amazing about universal basic income programs is that they found that it actually gets people off of welfare, it gets people off of other types of public assistance and gets them into the productive economy. But wait, there's even more. What about a community land trust so that people, instead of private ownership of individual houses or individual plots of land, we create community land trusts where we say, all right, the land is actually going to be held in perpetuity, take it off of the private commodity market, and instead say, we're going to just treat housing as a human right, and we're going to say that the land itself is owned collectively and in a community, but you can own an individual house on top of that, or you can own an individual apartment within an apartment complex, but the entire complex is owned collectively. And I'm going to stop for a moment, Jack, and point out that what I'm describing to you is a way to say we can still maintain a level of private agency within a truly public concept. We get out of the hyper individualistic, hyper selfish me, and get us back to the we. And again, I did that very intentionally. We the world is about the we. And I would argue that for those of you who have tuned in or are very active with the We the World, and this is an invitation to you, let's actually look at the economic system and say, well, how do we make We the World a reality? I would argue that these kind of non-reformist reforms, public banking, universal basic income, community land trust, public banking, these are policies that are actually happening now already in individual places. And I'll just make it to the US because that's where I'm most familiar with. All across the US, they're already happening, but they're mostly disconnected from one another. We haven't done a really good job of networking those together into a movement of movements to democratize the entire economy. Most of us, myself included, have, as social change agents, been very much about individual issues, fighting to stop that toxic incinerator, supporting an individual union campaign to unionize a particular workforce, fighting against racial injustice or the prison industrial complex. Like, no matter what the issue is and no matter how important it is, I would argue that it always touches up against a legal system and an economic system, which is why I'm going to now say, even though this is mostly about the solidarity economy, I do want to give a hat tip to another organization that actually Jana and I are both familiar with, called Move to Amend. It's a US context, a call to abolish all corporate constitutional rights, because for me, if we had a legal system and a political economy system that was actually democratic, we could live in the world that all of us so desperately want and so richly deserve, but can't have it under capitalism.
So, is that a pause here?
It is a pause. I don't want to just sort of talk at you or the guest, but I know that this is a recording, so I'm pausing so you, Jack, can say where should this conversation go next. I think we've still got another, say, 20 minutes or so. Or
Yeah,
we
and
can wrap it up here. I'm in your hands.
all right. Well, I guess what I'm wondering is, how, as you look at what's going on, how successful do you see the movement moving? And I guess, do you have any ideas of what we can do to improve that and move it along first? Because this is something that's really got to get done, and it's got to get done a lot sooner than I think we might have thought a few years ago.
Listen, that's a serious and sobering question. I will tell you this. Uh, I have been I have been shocked at how quickly the ecological collapse is accelerating. We all knew that we were putting such stress on Mother Earth with overpopulation, with the burning of fossil fuels, but now what we're seeing is fish stocks are collapsing. Soil is eroding. The fires in Los Angeles, the floods, like it's assuming biblical proportions. And I will say candidly, lovingly, I don't know how to change the entire global system all at once. I know that I have agency on my own conduct. So I take think globally, act locally to heart. It's why I support worker-owned cooperatives, because I have agency over that. It's why I support the creation of community land trust, because I can find land trust within my local community and support it. I know that in California, I say with humility, I helped with the California Public Banking Alliance to draft and pass the first law in 100 years to allow the creation of public banks, right? So these are not easy solutions, but they are available solutions. So Jack, what I would encourage folks to do, please go to the website, U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. It's ussen.org. The other thing I would say is, if you're able to come, join us in Atlanta, May 2 through 4. A whole group of us. I expect hundreds of people who are in this movement to come. Go to Resist and Build. And Jana, I will share that website with you so that you can make sure to include it. And maybe if Jana's really on the job and other people there, maybe across the bottom of the screen even, it might say Resist and Build with the little website for you. But the point is, we are already moving and coming together. And one of the things that's exciting to me is, and I say this again candidly, I'm going to go ahead and tell the joke. Maybe it's dark. I actually find it both funny and a little encouraging, because one of my favorite authors is Tom Robbins. He wrote Even Cowgirls Get the Blues and Jitterbug Perfume and a whole host of other books. In one of his books, he said this, and remember, he was writing in the late 1970s. So here's what he says. It's hard to live in the last quarter of the 20th century, because the world is falling apart too quickly to be very comfortable, but not quickly enough to be really exciting. And for those of you not on the screen, Jack is chuckling, Jana is chuckling as well. So the joke landed for them. But y'all, here's the follow-up. Cobb's addendum is, and as we begin the 21st century, life is getting pretty exciting, because the world is in fact falling apart more and more quickly. So the race is on. From the bottom up, can ordinary people create new systems and knit them together fast enough to actually buttress the one that's collapsing? Because I'll end it with this, Jack, and I wish that I did not see it with such clarity. But the system, the global ecological collapse, is not coming. It has begun. We are in that moment. We're also in a moment where the inherent contradictions of capitalism are demonstrating that they cannot solve these problems. In fact, they are the problem. So, and I don't mean just the existential crisis of commodifying the earth, which is fundamental and again, existential. In addition to that, capitalism requires the continued growth in order to succeed. And unlimited growth on a finite planet is literally impossible. In fact, unlimited growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. And cancer either kills the host or you cure the cancer. They're only one of two ways that cancer will actually end. You kill the host, or the cancer is removed or cured or replaced. So my point is this: capitalism in its unlimited growth paradigm is like cancer. We need to evolve and grow past it, replace it, or we're going to destroy the planet and ourselves. The third part I want to make, and to be really clear, since we're recording on January 16 and next week, Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated, let's acknowledge that all across the world, not just in the US, fascism is rising. Fascism as a political economic system is emerging all across the world, and it's emerging now for the same reasons it emerged in the 1930s. Because in the 1930s, the entire economic system, the entire world order was evolving from an agrarian way of organizing the economy to an industrial one. Now, I'm not saying that that agrarian way was fair to everybody. The horrors of racism and patriarchy and power over were absolutely, and imperialism were absolutely there. But the point I'm making is the basic agreement about an agrarian society for an economic system was how more or less the world operated. As that economic system evolved into an industrial society, there was a level of disruption, chaos. People didn't know where they fit in. And fascists were able to come in and say, we have an understanding and a place for you in it. It's an us versus them. It is a hyper-nationalistic one. It's a hyper-militaristic one. It's not merely totalitarian, jackbooted thugs. That's an element. But fascism only works if there is a social force behind it, enough of a group of people who agree with it. And the thing that frightens me is I'm watching more and more people abandon a commitment to democratic political principles and glom on to an authoritarian power over political system that just says hyper-nationalism. And remember, the hyper-nationalism may be in the US, but in India, Modi is a fascist. In Brazil, Bolsonaro is a fascist. I can go down the list. What makes it similar or the same is they are hyper-nationalists. There are brown and black-skinned fascists. But in the US, it's always white and always white supremacist because of the demographics themselves. So again, ecological collapse, economic collapse of not just late stage capitalism, we have morphed into the end stage of capitalism. And those inherent contradictions are coming to an end because we're moving from an industrial society to basically a post-labor, right? This artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, like ordinary workers, there's fewer and fewer places for us. And yet they have still said you need money to survive, but there's fewer and fewer ways to sell your labor on the open market. So the billionaire class is getting richer and richer, but the rest of us, the entire middle class is collapsing. We are becoming not just a proletariat, but a precariat. We are all barely hanging on. So we're either going to create a world that works for all of us, or it won't work for anybody. Because I'll end it with this, Jack. We are either going to evolve into some kind of eco-socialist, indigenous, solidarity economy kind of practice, or a dystopian fascist future. I don't think the neoliberal middle is going to hold much longer. We have to have a new paradigm. The fascists have a plan. The solidarity economy activists have a plan. But if we're not dealing with the economy, the rest of the stuff will not matter.
Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, that was a very, very good talk, David. And I'm going to let you be done, unless you have something that comes to mind that you can bring up. But since I have a platform here and people watching, I want to bring up something that I have been working on that I don't see other places. Like when we're trying to build an economic structure, we're trying to build, cooperatives, what do you call worker-owned cooperatives, et cetera. And the various things we do with all these different kinds of businesses, the solidarity economy, we look at the business part of it, or the people who are doing the selling, or the people that are involved. I think what we have to do is we have to take that to another level. In other words, not just organize the businesses We need to organize the customers. We really need to get a situation where we can put together numerous databases so that worker-owned cooperatives or various other, the solidarity economy can find who the people are who want to support that solidarity economy. And then, of course, the solidarity economy, the people, most people who would be happy to support the solidarity economy or conscious business don't know where to find them, don't know who's who. So I guess what I'm trying to say, if we want this to work, we want it to work quicker, we really got to put together a whole organizational thing of all the people who want to live in a better world, because we're putting way too much of our money and resources into the economy that is currently running the world, this capitalist economy. And if we don't know where else to do it or how else to put that money and keep it in our communities, we're going to continue to do that. So anyway, I don't know if you want to say a few words about that, that'd be good. You don't have to, but I would be kind of interested in what you think about that idea, because I'm trying to push it, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I will conclude with this. First, I want to thank We the World. I want to thank Jana, and I want to thank you, Jack, for the opportunity to have this conversation. But more importantly, I want to thank you, the viewer of this program, whenever you're watching it, whoever is listening to me now, the fact that you have been on with us for 30 minutes or so to have this conversation, I am deeply and profoundly appreciative. And I want to say this, I take you seriously. In fact, sometimes I think I take people more seriously than they take themselves, because I know that we actually have the power to make this kind of change. That's number one. Number two, I want to take a moment to say a reminder. The U.S. Solidarity Economy Network website is ussen.org. If you want to get involved with me and others that think and talk and do like this, join us in Atlanta, May 2 through 4, 2025 in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll ask Jana when this goes out to please make sure to have that website, which I will share with you. The third thing that I'll do is to say that if you enjoyed this conversation, which you're just watching, I am going to invite you to join a participatory workshop that my co-coordinator at the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network is going to do with We the World. Her name is Emily Kawano. She is always very humble, but I'm going to tell you in advance, she is one of the founding grandmothers of the solidarity economy movement in the entire U.S. She's a co-founder of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. She's an economist. She's an organizer. She's a co-op incubator and developer. And Jack, your idea, which I think is incredibly intriguing, when you participate in that workshop, there'll be a place for you and others to make specific suggestions. And what I will end with is this. It's up to us. There's nobody coming to save us. It really is us. But that's okay, because we're enough. And I want to thank you all and encourage you to not quit, not give up. We're getting larger, stronger, and better organized every day, and the race is on to see if we can create a world that we deserve. And I think We the World is a fantastic place to do that. Peace.
Oh, okay, and thank you a lot for bringing that participatory workshop up that Emily is putting out there, because I think it's the next level of learning what the whole thing is about. And for those who are listening or whatever, David has given you his website a few times, maybe hopefully you have it by now. USSEN, United States Solidarity Economy Network. And the other thing is, of course, is you can contact we.net, and we will make sure that we put that information out there so you can attend Emily's workshop as well. So I think we got it, got everything done. Jana is coming back, so here we are. And very good job, David. I really appreciate it. That was excellent.
I agree. It was wonderful. And thank you for all that information. It is truly scary, but I'm a positive person, and I like to think that we can pull it together and do it. So let's do it.
All right.
All right. So thank you to Brigitte Ben Ali, our events director, and my tech person for today. Thank you to David and Jack for being with us today. And thank you for joining our broadcast. Remember, please join us and take action to be of service at we.net, MLK, and other places as you've heard today. And donations are gratefully appreciated at we.net/donate. Goodbye from all of us at We the World.